Redditors who do not have a romantic how we first met story with your significant other. How did you meet? Craigslist. I was new in town. Didn't know many people. I put an ad up looking for someone to go explore and do weird shit like put googly eyes on things. She answered. We emailed back and forth a few times. Met. Hung out. It was really relaxed. Then about 3 weeks later we realized it was more than that. Damn. You found a lover on Craigslist. Meanwhile I can't even find a good quality sale. Added my wife on Facebook 11 years ago because I thought she was hot. She popped up in a friend's pictures and I was like damn, nice, and now I wake up in the same bed as her and I say damn, nice every single day. She tripped on the gutter. While everyone around her helped her, I just stood there trying to contain my laugh. She still tells this story to other people up to this day. She tripped and you fell. That's romantic. We had Spanish class together and we were both shy. So when we picked partners for projects, assignments, we were always the last two who didn't have partners. Man, he said not romantic stuff. I was eating tacos in a mall food court. He walked by me and I thought he was cute, but then I started choking on my taco and he looked at me weird and walked away. My friend with me went and got his number for me. 7 years ago. He told me he thought I was laughing at him. Thanks Taco Bell face with tears of joy. She first met me while dating my best friend and I was with another girl at the time. Years later, my best friend convinced me to hang out with her. Called her up and invited her to Buffalo Wild Wings where he and I were hanging out. Since we had both already eaten, we walked across the parking lot to a bar. I played darts with friends while drinking and talking to her a bit. Then after the bar closed, we went back to our cars, started making out, decided there wasn't enough room inside, and with her bent over the hood of my car in Buffalo Wild Wings parking lot at 4 a.m. It was a magical night we'll tell our grandchildren about one day. I assume this is a tourism ad for New Jersey. My wife and I met on OkCupid. I used to feel kind of embarrassed about this until I realized that now there are married couples out there who met on Tinder. Tinder. Maybe one day I'll tell my parents, but the friend of a friend story has worked well enough so far. Met at a homeless shelter. We hit it off. Got back on our feet. Got a place together. Getting married. It never seemed a romantic situation to me. We met in a homeless shelter isn't exactly something we tell people openly. You found love in a homeless place. My dog got her dog pregnant. I don't know how those two met because he's often chilling in my fenced backyard without a leash. Only a collar with my number in it, so he must have escaped and had a good time and come back all in under 1 hour. One day she called me and yelled at me for not neutering him and let him roam freely. I yelled back at her for not spaying her dog and told her that my boy isn't walking around on the streets freely. We had a big argument about everything. My dog is the only one who could have gotten hers pregnant, so I couldn't just do nothing. We talked it out and fell in love shortly after the puppies came. My now wife got shit-faced at New Year's Day party and confessed her crush on me. She then persistently tried to coerce a very sober and uncomfortable me to sleep with her, which I declined. Called her the next day and asked her on a proper date. That was almost 7 years ago and we've been happily married 3 years. Have same first name and last names 1 letter off. Keep getting each other's mail. My husband and I met working our shittiest job ever, Walmart. At work, she was really shy and I thought she wanted to murder me. I still think that. But at least now she has my life insurance. He was my mom's upstairs neighbor and my mom forbid me from hanging with him as she was sure he was a bad influence. 13 years and 2 kids later, we're all a big happy family. The way you phrased this makes him sound substantially older, to be honest. He was drunk. An acquaintance and I went to pick him and another friend up to go out to a club. We've been together almost 15 and half a year, married 13. Even his proposal was not very romantic. We were in our backyard getting ready to barbecue and he asked me if I would marry him. First thing out of my mouth was, "Are you sure? It totally works for us though." My husband and I met while he was dating one of my friends in high school. Whoops. To my credit, they broke up after she cheated on him multiple times. So I don't feel like I violated girl code too badly. Not me, but one of my friends told me about how their parents knew a couple who found each other around the bin truck. So basically one day a guy went to take back his metal can from the street, but there was a big problem. The garbage worker had accidentally made a tear in the bin bag and ripped it open, spreading shits everywhere on the pavement. So next week the upset man waited for the same workers to show up to get some explanations. Turns out that garbage worker was in fact a woman of the same age, which was really rare in those times. 70s to 80s. Charmed by her uniqueness, the dude decided to share numbers. They dated and we all know the rest. Not the nicest way to meet someone if you ask me, but quite a nice story. We met online, and didn't plan to exactly be in a relationship. Accidentally ended up married. Oops. Same. Looking online for a random hookup. His profile mentioned awkward first date sex. Asked him how I sign up for this kind of date. He told me I just did. That was 10 years ago, married for 5. Side note. He didn't put out until date 4 or 5, so that was a lie. I don't remember meeting my husband. I was a freshman in high school and it was during band camp. I got a text from him one night and pretended to know who he was because I was too embarrassed that I didn't know everyone's names yet. Have you figured out his name yet? If not, take him to Starbucks. Also, if you're about to marry him, pay attention to the priest. Usually they call them out by their name when asking for the vows. Working at a residential treatment center for emotionally disturbed adolescents. There was a riot on campus. It took 2 shifts of staff to get the kids quieted down and back in bed. We were supposed to get off work at 11 p.m. but were there until 1 a.m. Guy the first was working with was friends with my roommate. So after we got off, I said I'm going home to get drunk. Want to come? That was 42 years ago. We've been married for 37 years and have 2 adult children. Met my girlfriend at a New Year's Eve party. We were both super drunk. I may have blurted out my life story too. I came back with her to her apartment. After sobering up, I decided to get naked and crawl into her bathtub. I passed out, but woke up with a blanket on me and a pillow under my head. She sent me a message asking if I was okay. I asked her out for coffee. The rest is history, I guess. After sobering up, I decided to get naked and crawl into her bathtub. I have to question your level of sobriety at this point. We both joined a group to play D&D together. He was a halfling rogue. I was a human barbarian. In the first session he climbed on my shoulders to spear some foe in the throat, and then on my next turn I attempted to assist him up onto the roof of the small hut next to us. I rolled a natural 1 and basically punted him into a wall for some ridiculous amount of damage. Oops. We've been married for 5 years and have 2 kids. Well, almost. I'm very pregnant right now. Tinder. I had been dumped a few weeks earlier and wanted to just do me and not worry about anyone else for a bit. Well, that got old fast, so I downloaded the app and started swiping. We matched about a day later and spent a few days texting through the app before she gave me her number, and then about a week later we met up for drinks. I was poor at the time. Had just started a new job and missed the first pay period, so we had 1 drink and then I made an excuse to leave because I couldn't afford any more. We walked out and I gave her a hug saying bye and we should meet up again soon. We will be celebrating our 2-year in December. Just do me. That got old fast. In this thread, a lot of stories that are actually pretty cute. Met my husband on Plenty of Fish. I had an account, my friend, and I used to troll people when we were bored. Used my own picture and he seemed decent, so I told him what was up with my account. He thought it was funny and asked me on a date. Day we scheduled to meet up, my appendix exploded and was in the ICU for 2 weeks. Okay. Rescheduled once I got home. His GPS directed him to my house by driving through a river. We lived in Florida at the time, so mud, crackheads and alligators were a concern. Police had to come save him and escorted him to my house. We still laugh about it. Badminton class in college. I was beating him badly. He finally realized I was a competitive freak and not some little girl who didn't care if she won or not. I was the DD for the night at the local club. It was getting late and everyone wanted to party more. I was getting hungry. Outside the club this guy always had his hot dog cart set up, so I went outside to get a couple. The club didn't allow outside food or drink, so I just sat on the curb. She came out drunk as a skunk with her friends. Took a few steps then puked on me. My hot dogs got ruined too. Her friends really weren't in any condition to drive either, so I called an Uber and asked him to let me know they got home safe. She called the next day incredibly apologetic and asked to make it up to me. She showed up to the restaurant with a new shirt and a pack of Franks. Laughed hysterically. Got talking and here we are. I always say she had a very unique method of picking me. My ex-wife introduced us. not me but an old friend. Back in the 70s, my friend Shirley was at a bar late one night making a phone call in the back room on a payphone, and some drunk asshole came stumbling in and took the phone from her, hung it up, then proceeded to make a call to someone else. She stood back and smacked him in the face. He fell flat on the floor and busted out laughing. That's how they met. A short bar fight, I suppose. I always loved hearing that story when I drank with them. She passed away a few years back and was a very sweet woman. Online gaming. I lashed out publicly because I was emotional and they sent a message apologizing because they genuinely thought it was their fault I was angry. I cried. We talked. And we started talking because guildies were supposed to get along. I always go with the sweet lovey-dovey story that my husband and I have been best friends since we were 11 and 12. The truth is, the first day I met him I choked him out. He was sitting behind a couch with his back to the couch, and I reached over the back and grabbed him. I don't know why I did that. Just a stupid kid thing I guess. But apparently it worked. We are 28 now and have been married for 3 of those years, even though we have been a couple since 17 and 18. Match.com. She sent me an email and I waited a day to decide if the $20 commitment was worth it. It was, and we've been married a little over a decade. My folks met when they ran for cover in the same spot during a drive-by shooting. I met my wife at trivia at a local restaurant. She was cute, and we met amongst a group of friends. I found out she was working at Subway. She was a senior in high school, and I was a freshman in college. I stopped by that Subway one day with the intention of flirting, and managed to a bit, until I realized she was buttering me up to get a ride home. Excited, I eagerly agreed. Then, I found out she was needing to get home to get ready for a date with another guy. We met again when she came to my university later that year. I was going to the comedy show with Carlos Mencia, and I was hammered drunk. Lo and behold, I stumble drunkenly into a group of girls, and I nearly topple her. We proceed to have a great night, and everything from there was history. Not particularly romantic though. I was donating blood and I hit it off with the lady next to me. She seemed to like my weird sense of humor and I think our blood bags touched. I met my wife in 1989, in psychiatric hospital. Married for 29 years now. My parents have a pretty great one. My mom was a 19-year-old intern at this big company. She was tasked with inventorying a warehouse. She found a box of screws with no part number. She asked around for days. Nobody knew anything about these screws. She was getting frustrated. Finally, somebody directed her to go see this particular guy who was kind of famous for being a reclusive, if brilliant dickhead. She walks into his office, holds up a screw, and asks him, "I've asked everybody. No one knows. What is this?" My dad looks at her and says, absolutely deadpan, "It's a screw." She called him an asshole and stormed out. They were married 5 years later. Their 40th wedding anniversary is next August. They also got engaged in a Taco Bell. My parents are great at not romantic stuff.